The night I caught my wife cheating on me with my best friend was the same night they both realized one very important thing. The house they were standing in was completely in my name, and they had absolutely no idea. My name is Ethan Miller. I'm 38 years old. For most of my life, I believed loyalty meant everything. I grew up in a small town where people valued honesty, friendship, and family above all else. My father worked construction his entire life, and my mother was a school teacher. They weren't rich, but they built a life based on trust. My father used to tell me something I never forgot. Son, money comes and goes, but the people you trust, those are the ones who define your life. For years, I believed that. I built my life around that belief. After college, I started a small construction business. It wasn't easy in the beginning. I worked long hours, sometimes 7 days a week, trying to get enough clients just to survive. But eventually, things started to grow. By the time I was 32, my company had become stable. I had employees, contracts with real estate developers, and enough income to finally think about the future. That's when I met Jessica. Jessica worked as a marketing manager for a property development company. I first met her during a meeting about a renovation project. She walked into the room confident, smiling and full of energy. She had this way of talking that made everyone feel comfortable. Within minutes, she could turn a serious business meeting into a relaxed conversation. We started talking after that meeting. At first, it was about work, then about life, and eventually, about everything. Jessica made me feel like my life was finally coming together. 2 years later, we got married. At the wedding, standing next to me as my best man, was someone I had trusted for almost 20 years, my best friend Ryan Carter. Ryan and I had been friends since high school. We played basketball together, got into trouble together, and survived some of the worst years of our lives side by side. When my father passed away 5 years ago, Ryan was the first person who showed up at my door. He didn't say much. He just sat there with me. That's the kind of friend he was. At least, that's what I believed. The three of us spent a lot of time together after my marriage. Ryan came over for dinner regularly. Sometimes we watched football games together in the living room. Other times we grilled outside in the backyard. Jessica always said she loved how close Ryan and I were. "You guys are like brothers," she once said. I smiled when she said that, because I believed it too. About a year after we got married, I bought the house. It was a beautiful 2-story home in a quiet neighborhood just outside the city. Big windows, a large backyard, and enough space to eventually raise a family. But when it came to the paperwork, I made a decision that Jessica didn't think much about at the time. I put the house entirely in my name, not because I didn't trust her, but because my lawyer advised it. My construction company had certain financial risks, and keeping the house separated legally could protect it from business liabilities. Jessica shrugged when I explained it. "It's still our home," she said, and she was right. At least, it felt like it was. For the next 3 years, everything seemed normal. Ryan kept visiting, Jessica kept smiling, and I kept working. But slowly, things started to change. Jessica began spending more time on her phone. At first, I didn't think much about it. Everyone checks their phone constantly these days. But sometimes, she would suddenly lock the screen when I walked into the room. Other times, she would step outside to take calls. Late at night, when I asked who it was, she always had a simple answer: work. I believed her. Because when you trust someone, you don't look for lies. You assume honesty. Ryan also started coming over more frequently. Sometimes when I wasn't even home, Jessica said he just stopped by to say hello or help with small things around the house. Again, I didn't question it. He was my best friend. Why would I? But everything changed one Thursday evening. That day had been exhausting. One of my construction sites had a major delay because of a materials shipment that never arrived. I spent the entire afternoon arguing with suppliers and rescheduling workers. By the time I left the office, it was already dark. Normally, I texted Jessica when I was on my way home, but that night, I didn't. I just wanted to get home quietly. As I pulled into the driveway, something immediately caught my attention. Ryan's car was parked outside. That wasn't unusual by itself, but the lights inside the house were mostly off. Only the living room lamp was on. I walked to the front door and unlocked it. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard something. Soft laughter, coming from upstairs. My chest tightened. Jessica and Ryan had hung out before, sure, but something about the tone of that laughter felt different. I slowly walked up the stairs. Each step made my heart beat faster. Halfway down the hallway, I heard Jessica's voice, and then Ryan's. The door to the bedroom was slightly open, just a few inches, enough for light to spill into the hallway, enough for me to hear everything clearly. And in that moment, I realized something was very, very wrong, because the sounds coming from inside that room were not the sounds of two friends having a casual conversation. I stood frozen in the hallway. At first, my brain refused to accept what I was hearing, because when you trust two people with your entire life, your mind tries to protect you from the truth. But the sounds coming from inside my bedroom made it impossible to lie to myself. Jessica's voice, Ryan's voice, soft laughter, and the unmistakable sound of my bed moving. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. For a moment, I thought about walking away, just leaving the house and pretending I never heard any of it. But then something inside me snapped. This was my house, my life, my marriage, and my so-called best friend. Slowly, I pushed the bedroom door open. The moment the door swung wide, everything stopped. Jessica gasped. Ryan's face went completely pale. They were both standing beside the bed, scrambling to grab their clothes. For a few seconds, nobody said anything. The room felt suffocating. Ryan was the first to speak. "Ethan, this isn't what it looks like." I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the most ridiculous sentence I had ever heard. "Really?" I said calmly. "Because it looks exactly like what it is." Jessica quickly wrapped the blanket around herself. "Ethan, please listen." "No," I said quietly. "You've both done enough talking." Ryan looked like he wanted to disappear. He couldn't even meet my eyes. This was the same guy who stood next to me at my wedding, the same guy who toasted our marriage and called me his brother. And now he was standing half-dressed in my bedroom, with my wife. I waited for anger to explode inside me. But strangely, it didn't. Instead, I felt something colder, a kind of calm that scared even me. Jessica stepped toward me. "Ethan, it didn't mean anything." That sentence made my jaw tighten. "You're in my bed with my best friend," I said. "And you think it didn't mean anything?" Ryan finally spoke again. "Look, man, it just happened." I slowly turned my head toward him. "Just happened?" "Yeah. You accidentally drove to my house, walked into my bedroom, and slept with my wife?" Ryan swallowed hard. "That's not what I meant." Jessica tried again. "Ethan, please. We were going to tell you." I raised an eyebrow. "When?" Neither of them answered. That silence told me everything. Then Ryan said something that surprised me. "Actually, we were already talking about the next step." "The next step?" Jessica nodded nervously. "We didn't want to hurt you." The absurdity of that statement almost made me laugh again. "You didn't want to hurt me," I repeated. So cheating in my house seemed like the polite option. Jessica looked down at the floor. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. "We thought you might move out soon," he said. That sentence made my attention sharpen. "Move out?" Jessica hesitated. "Well, eventually. Why would I move out?" Ryan and Jessica exchanged a quick glance. Then Ryan said something that made my stomach twist. "Because this is going to be our house." For a moment, I wasn't sure I heard him correctly. "Your house?" Ryan nodded slowly. Jessica stepped closer to him. "Ethan, we've been talking about starting a life together." The words hit me like ice water. Not just cheating, they were planning a future. "In my house." Jessica continued speaking, almost like she had rehearsed it. "We didn't want things to end like this, but eventually we were going to talk to you." "About what?" I asked. "About the divorce," Ryan added quietly. "And the house." I stared at both of them, and suddenly, everything made sense. The strange behavior, the secret phone calls, Ryan visiting more often. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning something. Ryan looked around the room confidently. "I mean, it makes sense," he said. "You work all the time anyway." Jessica nodded. "And this house is perfect." Perfect. My chest felt tight again, but I kept my voice calm. Interesting. Ryan seemed encouraged by my lack of anger. We can work something out, he said. What kind of arrangement? You move into a small apartment or something? Jessica added quickly. And we'll handle the mortgage here. I stared at them both. Then I slowly asked the most important question. Why do you think I'm the one moving out? Ryan frowned. Because it's the logical thing to do. Jessica nodded again. It would just make things easier for everyone. For everyone. I walked further into the room and looked around. The bed, the dresser, the windows, the house I spent years paying for. Then I turned back to them. Ryan crossed his arms confidently. We're not trying to be enemies here, Ethan. Jessica touched his arm. We just want a peaceful solution. For a few seconds, I didn't say anything. Then I asked one simple question. Ryan, who do you think owns this house? He looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, legally. Ryan shrugged. You and Jessica. Jessica nodded. It's our marital home. I slowly shook my head. No. They both stared at me. Then I said the sentence that changed the entire atmosphere of the room. This house is only in my name. Ryan blinked. Jessica frowned. What? I kept my voice calm. When we bought the house, the deed was placed entirely under me. Ryan laughed awkwardly. Come on, man. I'm serious. Jessica's face started losing color. That's not possible. It is. Ryan looked at Jessica. You didn't tell me that. She looked stunned. I assumed. I leaned against the doorframe, and for the first time since walking into that room, I smiled. Because the two people who thought they had everything figured out had just realized something very important. They had built their entire plan on a house that didn't belong to them. The silence in the bedroom suddenly felt very different. Just a few minutes earlier, Ryan had been standing there confidently, talking about our house and our future. Now his expression looked completely different. Confused, uneasy. Jessica was the first one to break the silence. That can't be right, she said quickly. Her voice sounded shaky now. You're just saying that because you're angry. I shrugged calmly. I'm not angry. Ryan frowned. Then show us. I raised an eyebrow. Show you what? The paperwork, Ryan said. If the house is really in your name. For a moment, I simply stared at him. It was strange how confident he still sounded, like he believed this was just a misunderstanding that would eventually work in his favor. Jessica stepped closer. Ethan, if this is some kind of joke. It's not a joke. Her face tightened. You're saying the house belongs only to you? Yes. Ryan crossed his arms. That doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense, I replied. When we bought the house, my lawyer advised me to keep it under my name for business liability reasons. Jessica's eyes widened. You never told me that. I did. She shook her head. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. You said it didn't matter, because it was still our home. Ryan looked back and forth between us. You're serious? Very. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Ryan let out a short laugh. Well, that's inconvenient. Inconvenient. The way he said it made my stomach turn, because even now, after everything, he sounded more annoyed than ashamed. Jessica looked like she was trying to process everything. But we've been paying the mortgage together, she said. You've been helping with expenses, I corrected. But legally, the property belongs to me. Ryan suddenly looked less comfortable. So what are you saying? He asked. I met his eyes. I'm saying this is my house. Jessica stepped forward again. But we're married. Yes, so I still have rights. Maybe to some shared assets, I said calmly. But not this house. Ryan rubbed his forehead. This is ridiculous. No, I replied quietly. This is reality. For a few seconds, the room stayed silent again. Then Jessica tried a different approach. Ethan, we can still figure something out. Like what? Well, maybe we sell the house. I almost laughed. You mean I sell my house? Ryan sighed. Look, man, we're not trying to make things worse. I looked at him. You slept with my wife. Ryan didn't respond. Jessica spoke instead. We didn't plan for it to happen like this. That sentence made something inside me finally snap. You didn't plan it? No. You two have been seeing each other for how long? Jessica hesitated. Ryan answered. About 8 months. 8 months. Almost a year. In my own house. Behind my back. I felt the anger rising now. But I kept it under control. So for 8 months, I said slowly, you've both been lying to me. Neither of them argued, because they couldn't. Jessica looked at the floor. Ryan stared at the wall. Finally, Jessica whispered, we didn't want to hurt you. That sentence again. I shook my head. You already did. Ryan sighed heavily. So what now? That was the question. The big one. 3 years ago, I would have exploded with rage. Maybe thrown Ryan out of the house. Maybe destroyed everything in the room. But something about the situation made me stay calm. Very calm. Because the moment they realized the house wasn't theirs, the entire power dynamic changed. They had expected me to be the one leaving. Now they weren't so sure. Jessica slowly sat on the edge of the bed. Ethan, please. What? Let's just talk like adults. Ryan nodded. Yeah. No reason to make this ugly. Ugly. That word made me laugh quietly. You slept with my wife, I said. In my bed. And you're worried about things getting ugly? Ryan looked uncomfortable again. I'm just saying we can handle this maturely. Jessica reached for my hand. I pulled it away. Don't. Her face fell. I know you're hurt, she said softly. Hurt? I repeated. You think that's the problem here? Ryan shifted his weight. So what do you want, Ethan? I looked at both of them carefully. 2 people I had trusted more than almost anyone else, now standing together. Against me. Or at least, they thought they were. I want honesty, I said. You're getting it. No, I replied calmly. You're getting the beginning of it. Jessica frowned. What does that mean? Before I could answer, Ryan's phone buzzed. He glanced down at the screen. Then his expression changed. What? Jessica asked. Ryan looked confused. It's the property registry notification. About what? Ryan stared at the phone again, then slowly looked up at me. Ethan, why am I getting a notification about this address? My heart skipped slightly because suddenly I realized something. Ryan wasn't just here tonight for Jessica. He had been doing something else. Something connected to the house. And whatever it was, it clearly hadn't gone the way he expected. Ryan stared at his phone like he had just seen something impossible. Jessica noticed his expression immediately. What is it? She asked. Ryan didn't answer right away. He kept looking at the screen, scrolling slowly, his forehead tightening more and more. Ryan? She asked again. Finally, he looked up at me. His confident attitude from earlier had completely disappeared. Ethan, what did you do today? That question made Jessica turn toward me. What is he talking about? I stayed calm. Maybe you should tell her, Ryan. Ryan swallowed. I got a notification from the property registry system. Jessica frowned. So? Ryan looked uncomfortable now. It says the property ownership information was updated this afternoon. Jessica's eyes widened. What does that mean? Ryan hesitated. It means the house was legally transferred. The room went silent. Jessica slowly turned toward me. Transferred? To who? I took a slow breath. To a trust. Her eyebrows pulled together. A trust? Yes. Ryan stared at me. You moved the property into a trust? Correct. Jessica stood up from the bed, clearly frustrated. Why would you do that? I shrugged slightly. Business protection. Ryan shook his head. That doesn't make sense. Sure it does. Jessica's voice became sharper. When did you do this? This afternoon. Ryan's eyes widened. Today? Yes. He looked completely shocked now. Ethan. The property transfer documents were filed at 2:17 p.m. That sounds about right. Ryan looked at Jessica, then back at me. Why would you suddenly do that? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked slowly across the room and sat down in the chair near the window. Then, I looked directly at both of them, because I'm not stupid. Jessica blinked. What? For the past few months, things started feeling off. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Jessica crossed her arms. What are you talking about? I noticed the late-night phone calls. Jessica looked away. I noticed Ryan visiting when I wasn't home. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. And I noticed the way both of you acted whenever I walked into the room. Jessica shook her head quickly. You're imagining things. No, I said calmly. I was observing. Ryan frowned. So you just assumed we were cheating? No. I leaned forward slightly. I started asking questions. Jessica's voice became tense. What kind of questions? The kind that lawyers answer. Both of them went silent. Ryan looked confused. Lawyers? Yes. Jessica's face slowly lost color. You talked to a lawyer? Two of them, actually. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. This is getting ridiculous. No, I replied quietly. It's getting interesting. Jessica stared at me. What exactly did you do, Ethan? I kept my voice steady. A few weeks ago, I started preparing for the possibility that something like this might happen. Ryan laughed nervously. So you prepared for a divorce before you even knew about us? I prepared for protection. Jessica stepped closer to me. Protection from what? From losing everything I worked for. Ryan frowned again. Wait, what does the trust have to do with that? Everything. Jessica's voice became impatient. Stop talking in riddles. So I explained. When the house was moved into the trust this afternoon, it stopped being personal property. Ryan blinked. What? It's no longer owned by me as an individual. Jessica stared at me. So who owns it? The trust does. Ryan shook his head. That doesn't change anything. Oh, it changes quite a lot. Jessica's voice grew tense. How? I looked directly at her. Because the trust agreement has only one beneficiary. Ryan frowned. And who is that? I smiled slightly.